All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final Hops and Harvest. We are here with AleSmith Brewing Company, and we're celebrating opening day of the Padres. Paige and I have our Padres gear. I've got my Big League Chew. The dinner's not ready for the beer dinner, but I've got my Big League Chew to hold me through. My sunflower seeds, and then my red vines. Never Twizzlers.
Beer's ready.
Peter's got beer.
I have that too.
Ready to start drinking. We have Paige with the Brewers Guild, Carmine, executive sous chef at MIHO, and then Peter with AleSmith. Excited to be sitting down and really talking about this baseball-inspired dinner tonight. This is our final Hops and Harvest. I hope you guys have enjoyed just every one of these dinners, and thank you all for your support. I know there are a lot of you that do this dinner every 2 weeks, and we really appreciate it, and we appreciate the support for the breweries, and I hope that after this series, you go out and support your local breweries and go in person and drink some of their beers in the brewery. So thank you, everyone. And let's kind of get into this. Paige, do you want to talk a little bit about the Guild before we get started on the menu?
Yeah, so the Brewers Guild's been around since 1997. We're coming up on our 24th birthday in June, which we're really excited about. And we were established to support the breweries and advocate on their behalf and help to promote where people can find fresh, locally brewed beer through, encouraging people to go to tasting rooms or go to events when those start happening again. AleSmith has been a longtime member and supporter of the Guild, and definitely appreciative of that support. So, and part of the Brewers Guild, we've been working with MIHO for several years now, and like Lindsey was saying, we've been working together the last 6 months on these Hops and Harvest beer dinner series, and they've been really successful in helping the breweries through the 2020 crisis, and also supporting the San Diego Brewers Guild, because we haven't been able to do our large-scale events like Beer Week and Guild Fest, which are major fundraisers in order for us to accomplish our goals of supporting the breweries and promoting them. So we're super appreciative of MIHO in working with us on trying to figure out the best ways to support our industry as we've all been struggling. So Lindsey, if you want to kind of go into MIHO and talk about MIHO, that would be great.
Yeah, well, I think kind of saying or piggybacking on what Paige is saying is really giving the community something to do during the pandemic, supporting the breweries, supporting the Guild, giving us something to do because we're not doing large scale events. We're not doing these big parties. So really detailing and coming up with a plan to deliver single or 2-course meals to people's homes was a new thing for us. So really dialed in our delivery game in the last year, and just, excited to slowly start to open up a little bit. But MIHO's been around for about 10 years. We started as a food truck in San Diego, the third food truck in San Diego, and went to full service catering after that. We've been pretty quiet in the last year, but definitely looking forward to things opening up again. But we've known Paige for a long time. Her husband was showcasing his second anniversary MIHO pint glass. So we've been friends for a while. And Peter was just talking before we got on this call about how he used to go seek out the MIHO truck and get those tacos. And so we still have our truck. We've got an Airstream. We still do it all. So excited about this. I am a huge baseball fan. My brother played competitive baseball. My dad was the coach. My mom was the team mom. So I hung out in the snack bar. So that's where my love for nacho cheese really comes in. So I'm very excited about this menu, and I think it's just so cool. We really chose AleSmith to finalize our series, the grand finale, because of the 394 collaboration, because the date fell on opening day. And we just love working with AleSmith. And I think that this is a really fun event for everybody and a way to kind of jump into spring and summer as things start to kind of open up a little bit. But Peter, let's shoot it over to you. And I would love to hear a little bit about AleSmith, how you guys got started, and then kind of go into this Tony Gwynn beer.
Sure. Well, back at you about working together. We love MIHO, and I think the Brewers in the early days in the mid '90s set the bar for quality, and the other brewers that have come on have met that standard. And I think MIHO early on set the food truck standard about what others. If you want to play in our sandbox in San Diego, you better bring your A game. And I think food trucks and great beer go together. So, well, thank you for having me, and we're thrilled to be the bookend on your dinners here. It looks fantastic. And so my name's Peter Zien. For those of you who don't know me, I'm currently the CEO of AleSmith Brewing Company. My wife, Vicki, and I are the owners. And we are in our 26th year, believe it or not, 1995. So AleSmith was started by home brewers in a 3,200 square foot facility on Cabot Drive, presently the home of Mick Keller. And we moved in 2014 down the street to our 107,000 square foot. So we have grown, and we've taken San Diegans on the ride with us, and it's been a thrilling ride. We're a humble brewery. We're always trying to do our best. Our customers and our vendors and everyone who supports us is our number one priority. And we're thrilled to have won some awards. We're humble, but I'll brag a little bit, with our 20 plus GABF awards and our World Cup stuff and Brewer of the Year in 08, all that stuff. It's just accolades that I love to share with the team. We're a team here, whether you were hired 25 years ago or yesterday, everyone's got the same voice here. And we park our egos at the door, and we work hard, and we try to represent San Diego well in everything we do. So it's great to see that we're back open. And like I was saying about MIHO, also I can praise Paige and the San Diego Brewers Guild, her role and the organization. It was never more important than in 2020. She was our voice. She had some things change with tasting rooms, the way we were being treated. And we all learned, we all pivoted, right? MIHO figured out how to deliver food, and we figured out how to have no contact pickup and delivery. And we all tightened our belts, and we all made up our minds that we'll get through this. And boy, it's sure looking bright now. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and very grateful for that. So I think the country is going to explode with activity and events, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we got through it, and I'm thrilled. So let's go back to 2014, and I'll tell you about a lawyer that called me one day who remembered me from a beer pouring that I did, a happy hour at the Foley Law Firm in 2007. And this slick guy kind of gave me his card, said, "Someday you might need some money, kid, keep my card." And I just threw it on the desk with a million other cards and never thought about him again until the phone call around this time 7 years ago in March of 2014. He said, you may not remember me. I'm an attorney, and I have a high profile sports figure client who wants to make his own beer. And he said, he's a San Diego legend. You want to guess? And it was a short list. I said, well, Tony Gwynn, Dave Winfield, Philip Rivers. Am I getting close? He said, oh, you already named him first. It's Tony Gwynn. And at first I didn't see the connection, but 2 days later, he texted me their address. And 2 days later, my wife and I are out front of the Gwynn house in Poway, nervous as all heck. And didn't want to be 1 minute late. I think we rang the doorbell. They wanted us there at 7. I think I was counting seconds, 6:59, 51, 52, 50. Boom. And opened the door, and there's Anisha Gwynn and Alicia, her mother, and they welcome us into their home. And for the first half hour, we don't see Tony anywhere. And I look back now, that was the interview. She had to make sure we were decent people and was worthy to meet Tony and worthy to continue. And so on that day, we talked, and I told her about, this can't be a gimmick. We have fans, and we want to do Tony proud. And we want to make this beer with Tony. It can't be just for Tony. Tony has to be a part of this. And we all know he was ill at the time, but he could still help. And so after we talked a half hour, she told her daughter, go get tea. And around the corner comes Tony Gwynn. It was amazing. And for those who had never met the man, gracious and humble and bigger than life. And we talked, and he shared stories, really funny guy. And I brought 4 of our beers. So I brought our extra pale ale, our IPA, our Nut Brown and Horny Devil Belgian ale, just to see where he's drinking. And he confessed to me, he says, I drink some watery beer. I'm not going to tell you which one. I said, well, I think I know. We're going to fix that, and we're going to get you drinking good beer now. And he was familiar with us, and he was thrilled we were there because we wanted to do him right. So it wasn't until we blended the extra pale ale and the IPA that we started getting in the neighborhood of a beer Tony liked, although he did not like bitterness. And I tried to explain those hops that you love, they contribute bitterness, but we ended up 3 prototypes, and it was the third one that he took a sip. It was just a month later we were brewing on our small system, and he said, that's the one, I want to run with this. And he was just gracious and humble man. And I didn't see the story at first. I said to my wife, we can't make enough beer already. I don't know how people are going to see this, a brewery and a baseball player. And she said, first of all, she's a huge baseball fan. She said, well, we're doing this, first of all. I go, okay, we're doing this, but tell me the story. And the more we got to meet the Gwynns and know them and learn and feel like family with the Gwynns, we realized that our vision and the way we conduct ourselves was very, very aligned. Here was a baseball player who spent his 20 years in the same city. We were a brewery that was almost 20 years in the same city at the time. He sought perfection in everything he did. We do the same with our beer. We're humble. He would always say that, oh, I'm just doing my best. I said, that sounds like us. We say that too. We never brag. We're helpful. He was helpful. Everyone has a Tony Gwynn story in San Diego. I ran into him here or there. He signed something. He was just so gracious. And it wasn't until, unfortunately, when he passed on June 16th, 2014, and we were invited like family to go to the memorial service and the funeral, that I read the back of the pamphlet that Alicia had written about her husband. And there were words there that are in our statement here as a company, like integrity and how you conduct yourself. And my wife and I were, crying, but we were also very proud. And so we said to Alicia, the beer came out on June 6th, 2014, 10 days before Tony died. It hit, and it's still the fastest consumed beer at a Padre beer festival ever. We went through 4 kegs in 40 minutes. We never turned the tap off. We opened it and we put cups under it while the line of people drank Tony Gwynn's beer that he helped us make. And so we asked Alicia after he died, you tell us what to do. Does this beer go away? We don't want to look like we're trying to make money off this. What do you want? She said, oh no, you're going to make this beer, and it's what Tony wanted. And we're going to change the way San Diegans look at their hometown beer. And she was all behind it. She said, Tony wanted this beer to quote everywhere and anywhere that would have it. And it's still Alicia's dream to have 394 poured in every Major League Baseball stadium. And she speaks with the commissioner about it. So it's just been a thrilling ride. We are greatly humble and honored to brew this beer for the Gwynn family. And I think of Tony every time I take a sip of this beer. And the first time I had it at Petco, I cried as I stood out there in left field. There were only 2 places that sold it in the stadium. And I held it up and I looked at it in the forefront and I saw the field and I imagined Tony running around down there. And I thought, we did it, Tony. Your beer is in the stadium.
Oof, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Well, and we have the museum here, and that day, we have 300 pieces of his career here. And when we opened that, we did a ribbon cutting, and we had boxes of Kleenex when you left. You went in there happy and smiling, you came out crying, and you couldn't help it. I mean, it's just such a wonderful man, and we're, again, just so honored to make this beer.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you.
Great story.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know it. I tell it a lot. I say, we need to, I'm happy that you wanted to tape this, because a lot of people say, oh, you made a beer for Tony. How long after he died did you make the beer? I said, no, he was there.
That's not what it is, yeah.
We did this together, and we've been able to raise a lot of money for the Tony and Alicia Gwynn Foundation from it. We've even started our own nonprofit because we were just so watching the good the Gwynn family did made my wife Vicky start Handle of Hope. And so we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary with our very own nonprofit. and we're helping school children and people that needed food during the pandemic and so on. So the Gwynn legacy is huge in San Diego, and it's like a wave that's rolled over us at AleSmith and created so much good.
Yeah, being a native San Diegan, there's no way that, that man and his legacy hasn't impacted me personally. And I have a young family, 2 young boys, and when we would go to the ballpark when it was open, we made sure to talk about Tony Gwynn and take pictures in front of the statue that they have there, because he did a lot for our community, and so it's important that we continue to tell his story and support the efforts that were important to him, like through the foundation and whatnot. So it's really great to have that also be a part of our beer community.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It's so nice to just hear the background behind this beer that you really see everywhere and you enjoy at the ballpark. And I love it too. And I just feel like a San Diegan when I'm drinking it. So let's get into the menu a little bit. So you're at home, you've turned on this YouTube link. If you check in the comments below, you'll be able to see the timestamps with the courses. So we'll go ahead and tell you when we're doing the first, second, third, and fourth course. We'll get into the reheating instructions with each course and talk about each beer and the pairing themselves. And then we'll ask a few questions at the end. To start, your beer either just arrived to your home or you've picked it up at AleSmith. So your beers are cold and your food is warm or cool, depending on what course it is. So what I like to do is put my beers in the fridge right away. I'll put the cold items in the fridge, and then anything that's served room temperature, I will just leave out on the counter. I also like to set my oven to about 200 degrees. I don't have a microwave at home, so I use either the stovetop or the oven to heat everything up, but just set that to 200. That'll keep things warm. You'll want that for your chicken wings or your cauliflower wings. But yeah, let's get into the first course. As you crack open this beer, this one is in a 16-ounce can, right? Yes. Okay. So grab 2 glasses, crack it open, split those beers, plate the food, settle in, and let's get started on this first course. Peter, tell us a little bit about this beer. I know this beer just made it to your year-round list, right?
Right. Cloudstream Hazy IPA has been added to our 2021 lineup, and it's really a fantastic beer. I can say that because my brewers, I'm just in awe of what they create. And Ryan Crisp, Anthony Chen, Peter Cronin from our quality team just came up with this amazing hazy. And, however you feel about hazies, I think they're here to stay. And I think what this showcases is a real lack of bitterness, but a tremendous hop character. It's like running through a hop yard. It's and it's a nice blend that is very bright and very floral and fruity notes. And then this, kind of you get this pine, you get this citrus, and the malt is staying out of the way for the most part, but it's definitely holding a firm base for you to enjoy this beer. So it's just not one-dimensional or anything like a hop tea. It's a satisfying, rich, medium mouthfeel beer that I think could be paired with almost anything on this menu, but I think the pairing was really nice. And I don't see beers in front of you, grit gals, but I'm going to take a sip right now.
Please do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Peter said, be creative with the pairing. If you want to save a little bit of beer and try the Cloudstream with your wings or with your chili, go for it. There's really no rules to this. But we did pair this with a pretzel, and we used a little bit of the hazy IPA in the beer cheese. So Carmine, will you tell us a little bit about that and also how to reheat this cheese?
Yes. So we're doing house-made pretzels with our hazy IPA beer cheese sauce. Very straightforward, very simple. We will be putting the beer cheese in a microwavable safe container. So that is very safe because it'll be served to you. It'll be going out warm. So I think putting in the microwave won't be very long, maybe 1 minute high should suffice, but just, if you don't feel like it's the heat temperature that you prefer, just take a spoon, stir it up, and then, do another minute. Some people prefer their pretzels nice and warm. So if you have your oven already, if you have your oven already turned on, just let it sit in there. Just warm it up. You don't need to do a fully toast. I mean, I know some people do like a little bit crispy on the outside, but again, it's already going to be served to you at room temperature. By the time it gets to you. So just warm it up. I think this is a great pairing just because we are incorporating the beer in there. But I do want to note something once we get to the second course, because you can ideally drink and eat those together. And I think it's a great pairing, but I'll get more into that on the second course.
There is a thirst quenching quality to Cloudstream too that I think would be really nice with the salty pretzel.
Yes.
Yum. I'm just interested in that like cheese.
Yes.
I mean, that's just baseball for me. I've got my beer, I've got my cheese. I'm like crunching on the peanut shell underneath my feet. Oh, I love it. Yum. I think that's going to be really good. So the second course, this Gose, I'm pronouncing it correctly, right? I just learned
That's
that
correct.
last year.
It's not a
Gose.
goose.
Yes. Yum. Love this style of beer. Ooh, beautiful color.
And how pretty it is, yeah.
Well, another new beer. Last year, we had kind of a raspberry sour, and this year we started noticing that adding a lime component to that made it even more delicious. And it's again kind of low calorie-ish for a beer, and at 4.75%, you can definitely drink the 12-ounce can we're sending in. You'll be fine. But yeah, it's raspberry, lime. It has a saltiness to it, which is part of the Gose style, and it's just beautiful color. And again, it's going to cut through anything that has fat, like a little bit of the chicken, the skin on the chicken and so forth. It's going to cut through that. It'll be able to exert itself in the fruity flavors and the sourness, even with strong flavors. So I think Carmine did a great job with this pairing too.
Nice. Thank you. You can't not have wings, right? We gotta have something. It's funny because like with all the beer dinner series that we've been doing, we've been kind of doing a little bit more upscale. To do this menu was really fun, but we also had to hit it home, but do it our way in a sense. This is something that we technically serve, or we actually serve on our menu for deliveries, al pastor chicken wings. So al pastor, we do the achiote paste, which is made from annatto seeds. So it gets that nice deep orange reddish color. So I think like the matching of the beer with this actually looks really good. So we cook it in that paste. There's chipotle in it, so a little bit of heat, but smoky depth and flavor. So we're gonna we actually don't fry our wings. Well, we bake them first and then we do deep fry them. So we're baking it with that al pastor marinade, and then we do deep fry it and then glaze it with that mango habanero glaze. Spicy and sweet, but nothing too crazy. So we're adding all these crazy flavors to it, but they all pair well together. But for those who are sensitive to spice, of course, you got to have ranch. So we're doing a cilantro lime ranch to cool it down. But again, some people like, to dip. Some people don't like to dip. And then, of course, got to have the crunch from the crudité, celery, baby carrots in there. But what I was saying earlier in the first course, again, because we've always done these beer series, you typically just eat it course by course. With this one, of course, who courses out their food at a baseball game, right? So you eat it together,
You're like over here. Yeah.
You got one clean hand, and then you got one hand that's just like dipped in cheese, dipped in that ranch, habanero sauce. So what I was saying that, you know, you can interchange the beers together and they pair well for both. Look at those colors. So yes, for heating instructions with this one, again, you can do a simple, put it in the microwave. You could put it in the oven as well. If you do put it in the oven, keep in mind, it does have sugar in it. So it will kind of caramelize a little bit, but I mean, it'll just make it even taste better. But you know, I'm crazy. Sometimes I'll eat cold wings too. So enjoy.
Yum. And with
Peter,
this,
oh, go
I was
ahead.
going to mention that you get 2 cans here too. So you want to save one for later, save one for, you know, later in the dinner, tomorrow.
You know, you get the sauce on the side of your mouth, you know, just, you know, save that for later as well.
I was going to ask Peter if you could go into the style a little bit more in case people don't know what a Gose is, or, you know, I think people are starting to make them more, so people are starting to see them more, but
that's a good question. It's very non-beer like. So, you know, if you're unfamiliar with this style, don't freak out when you open this. It's, you know, it might even appeal to a wine drinker more. And it has a gentle fruitiness to it. It definitely has a mouth puckering sensation, you know, a tartness to it, but it's not, if you're not into sours, I'm not going to say that it's a hardcore sour at all. It's very thirst quenching. Again, I mentioned the salt before. There's salt added to it. So I think it's going to be great with this pairing because it cuts right through. But yeah, it was developed in Germany, and it's one of those obscure styles that as brewers, you know, cut their chops on IPAs and all these things, over time you start going through the style guidelines and you're trying to find the most obscure ones. And finally Gose came to be, and some people are making fantastic ones. I know the Pink Boots Society made a great one years ago, and it opened people's eyes to what a Gose can be. So it's fun. It enables your lineup to be kind of varied. And yeah, I think I'm glad you asked me that, because some people might open this and say, wow, that doesn't seem like a beer at all. But it is a fermented malt beverage, and we just use a kettle souring process to just make it more tart than you're used to.
seems like it will be a great summer beer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh,
With
absolutely.
the quenching and the lightness and the low ABV.
Goes down super easy.
Wonderful.
Got my summer plans lined up.
Baseball and Limeberry twist.
That's right.
What a difference a year makes, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Just feels so different, and I'm so grateful.
And being a vegetarian like your wife, Vicky, I'm excited about those cauliflower nuggets as well.
Yeah.
In place of my
Yeah,
wing.
we really appreciate it. I'm sure you do as well. That when they put a little thought into the vegetarian one, they're just not going to toss a portobello at you like so many restaurants do. I love that MIHO always kind of puts some thought in that. It should be, in fact, we've had pairings that are strictly vegetarian, and you know, so I think it is kind of a new wave that's already picking up momentum.
Yeah, cauliflower nuggets, if you want to call them. I mean, you know, people have been doing them for the last few years, but they're great. You know, you can't really taste the difference, to be honest. I mean, of course, texturally, but it's just as good. I think it's a great substitution for it.
Poppers. Yeah. Yum. Delicious. All right.
Let's talk about 394.
Yeah, let's get it.
A little more this time, just from a drinking aspect rather than the story. But so Tony, one thing I did mention before is when we asked for guidance, he said, I want a beer that's light with a kick. And so the kick part is, it is a 6% pale ale on the high end of that style, but still, you know, you can have a few at the ballpark or wherever. And again, Tony was not he loved the hop character of the beers I introduced him to, but he just said, what's that in the back of my tongue when I swallow? I get kind of it's like a sharp thing. Well, that's bitterness. And by the way, it comes from those hops you love, but we'll work on this and come up with a compromise and try to get the bitterness as low as possible. So I think lack of bitterness is really showcased in a lot of the New England hazy style. And I think 394 was almost the predecessor of that, like from 2014. I've read reviews of it where they said it was a beer a little bit ahead of its time, trying to create a very hoppy beer that didn't make your mouth pucker. So that's what you have here. Biscuit malt, a nice malty introduction, and then an unmistakable hop character in the flavor, but not necessarily in the bitterness when you swallow. The aroma's super enticing, and I think that's what kind of gets people hooked first. It's some of the more, I'll call the new age hops that aren't even so new age anymore, but in 2014, you know, the hop growers are continually breeding and coming up with new aromas for us, ranging anywhere from coconut to mango and on and on and on it goes with the hundreds and hundreds of hops. So we had fun playing around with that and creating 394 Pale Ale. So I think paired with the venison chili, it's going to be great. Again, the hop character and the malt balance there in a more balanced, thirst quenching beverage is going to cut through. It's going to be able to hold its own amongst even strong flavors that we might find in this chili.
Yep. Third course, we're going into the venison chili. This is just like the beer, or it's going to be great with the beer. You say light, but packed with punch. Same thing with chili. You can't have chili without the punch of, you know, certain seasonings and flavors, you know, cumin, coriander, you got smoked paprika in there, just a bunch of different types of seasonings. But this is very traditional in a sense of, you know, the accoutrement, sour cream, you got cheese on top. We are adding a little bit of crunch of a cornbread crumble, but going back to the whole, you know, this is a type of dinner that you're kind of eating it all together, you know, mixing, you know, the first course and the second course, you know. So I highly, you know, recommend you guys to eat it together, but also eat it separately with the beers and, you know, switch it up between the courses. And if you have any pretzels left over, you know, I'm a dipper, so, you know, dip it in there. Also, what's great about chili is it's always better the next day. So if you have tortilla chips, if you have any Frito-Lays hanging around the house, you know, pour that on top. If you have any beer cheese left over, mix that together. It's something that's definitely going to fill you up, but again, it'll keep you busy while you're watching the game. So enjoy.
Yum. And to reheat that, I would put it on the stovetop probably. If you're going to microwave it, pop it in the microwave, stir it up, put it back in.
Exactly.
Pretty easy, but everything.
I really love that you said there's no rules to this, because I always would start beer dinners with that. People, sometimes it's their first one. Maybe they've been to a wine dinner before, but you know, us beer people are more into casual fun. You know, they're like, "Am I doing it right?" And they're like, "Well, there's no wrong here."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You're
it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, guys, it's time for the 7th inning stretch. We're gonna get ready for our last course.
Of singing, of "Take Me Out to the Ballpark."
Yeah. I have a terrible singing voice. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I
me too. I don't think anyone wants to hear us sing.
So the Speedway Stout, this is barrel aged. What a treat.
Right. We maybe a beer not often included. It's a very sought after beer, and love that MIHO was insistent on getting barrel aged into this to create some great value production to just a fantastic beer in my opinion. And it's the new 2020 version of our barrel aged Speedway Stout. For those of you unfamiliar with Speedway Stout, it's kind of an iconic San Diego brewery beer from AleSmith Brewing Company, and it's a coffee-infused imperial stout at 12.5% alcohol. It's a big beer, but it has a scary degree of drinkability, and I think many have found that out when it's too and packaged. And we still have some vintages available, but in the 25.4 ounce. So back in the day, in the late 90s, when this beer came out, there was nothing really like it. We were purposely trying to show people that it's not just the plastic ring around the 6-pack anymore. Here's a big bottle with a strong beer with a $10 price tag on it, which now is quite reasonable, but back then, it really, people go, what are they? Are they crazy? And what we found is lovingly that the beer geeks responded to this, and it became a collector's item. When it was first barrel aged in the early 2000s, which was a new concept, And my predecessor, Skip Virgilio and Todd Fitzsimmons, took some bold steps and threw this big 12.5% beer and used bourbon barrels. And in 2001, it was introduced, and people gobbled up these $20 bottles at the time, which was very expensive. And it skyrocketed in the ratings, and it became the #1 rated beer in the world on ratebeer.com in 2002.
Wow.
And I had my hands full with this brewery, and I didn't even know what rate beer was at the time. People were sending me congratulations, and I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is I got to brew all day long, and life was hard. But anyway, Barrel Aged Speedway Stout remains. 3 versions of it are in the top 50 beers in the world on ratebeer.com. And what a cool pairing, to have this with Cracker Jack caramel corn, which I'm looking forward to hearing about. But if you're unfamiliar with Speedway, you're going to pour this in a glass and you're going to see what appears to be as dark as a beer can get. I said 12.5% regular version. When it comes out of the barrel, we're looking more at 14.4% alcohol by volume. And unmistakable notes. But what happens in that barrel is more than just a little bit of a booze bourbon aspect. You get notes of vanilla, which quite huge in the particular version I have here. And it's all derived from the wood, from the prior product that had been in those barrels, such as a Heaven's Hill bourbon. And it just light wood notes. The coffee is assertive enough to come through still. The dark roasted malts, licorice, over-ripened fruits even, plum, prune, raisin is going on. Just an amazingly complex beer, and meant to age. You can enjoy this tonight, and I hope you do, but if you have a chance to pick up more of these bottles, go ahead and age them. We're opening 22-year-old bottles right now that are still shining. They're not anything like the day they were released, but they're still quite interesting. The same oxidation that ruins a low alcohol beer is a benefit to a high alcohol beer. Instead of going papery cardboard, you get sherry-like notes and very interesting alcohol type notes instead of that papery thing. So that's why the value of these beers go up and up and up, and people trade these for decades. But what a cool inventive pairing, really interesting to have this monster beer as the last course with something so simple that you can, I know MIHO is going to make this not so simple, but normally put your hand up and a guy whips a bag at you. And,
should we do that?
It says, yeah, now with liability, they probably
on sticks. COVID safe. This one, it's such a sophisticated beer. It would be easy to just pair it with something that, we're more privy to in terms of plated style desserts, but you could not go without a Cracker Jack style. So we quoted Cracker Jack just because we're not adding, and obviously it's our rendition, our style. We're not doing the typical peanuts. So we're adding toasted pepitas to that one. And this would be more of a zebra style popcorn if you've ever had them at certain, movie theaters. They'll do like chocolate and white chocolate, right on top. But salty, sweet dessert to go with this drink. I think it's perfect. It'll just kind of make you thirsty, but keep wanting more. So I'm just going to do our home. We got big pots out in our kitchen, so I'll be doing it myself, kind of like kettle style. And I'm just going to drizzle some chocolate on top. So it'll just be easy to eat. But again, go with the theme of just finger foods. I think it'll just be a perfect ending to, watching the game.
Mm-hmm. That nostalgic flavor. You can't go to a game without having Cracker Jacks or peanuts or sunflower seeds or something. So so much fun to come up with this menu. I'm so excited. Yum.
We did get a question about the barrel age process and how long did you barrel age, this rendition, the 2020?
Yeah, it's typically a year to answer the question. And longer isn't necessarily better. Sometimes you start picking up tannins and some unpleasantries from the barrel. And then if you don't do it long enough, it doesn't have time to really get that oak you're looking for in the vanilla. So we find the sweet spot to be around that 1 year, give or take a few months, depending on what's going on in production. But, we started when I took over AleSmith in 2002, we owned two barrels. And to rack it out of the barrel into stainless steel kegs. And we didn't want to move it because a lot of things had settled so we put on big heavy jackets and we did it in the cool box. And it's not meant for typical brewing equipment. So we had to hold the bung hole and to get a proper seal there that we could rack from. And we're freezing to death and just trying to get this into a 5-gallon keg and we can get it out of here and sell it. And now I go back into our cellar. We have over 800 barrels, and not just bourbon. Some are sherry and rye and tequila and white wine and red wine and so on. So it's wonderful. I think it's hard to find a brewery in San Diego that isn't doing a barrel process. And it's very distinct. It's like terroir with cheese, really. We all have our house flavors and it's a way to really make brewing sophisticated. Yeah. And even the hardcore wine and Scotch drinkers try our barrel aged products and they have to tip their hat a little bit. So it's great to see people drinking more barrel aged beer. Mm-hmm. But be in your final destination when you're drinking this one. Enjoy your dinner. Don't be moving around after this. Stay home. Yeah. Don't drive for sure. Yeah.
And like you said too, it's something that you could save too. So if you make it to this course and you want to enjoy it, the following week or even you say years later, it's definitely something that you can keep. So cool. Well, let's get into a couple more questions. Mainly for you, Peter, but what is a beer that you enjoy brewing the most?
Well, they're like your children, right? Are you going to pick one out? But I'll tell you, there was a time, and ESB now, it's kind of a style that only a few breweries are really pushing right now. IPAs have really taken a firm hold. But there was a time between 2002 and 2008, I don't think I had anything else on my kegerator but ESB, and I enjoyed making it. And I enjoyed drinking it. It had that toasty malt character, and then it had that wonderful noble hops on the back end of it, all English. And but right now, I really enjoy. I think Speedway is a challenge to brew correctly, and some people think the high gravity beers are the easy ones to make, and I would beg to differ. I think they're some of the hardest. When a big beer goes wrong, the problem is bigger. So. It took us many, many years to be able to brew Speedway in an efficient manner that came out in a predictable way every time. I remember when it was my brew day schedule and I had Speedway to brew the next day, I barely slept the night before. I was running processes through my mind and the dough, and if we can just get this into the boil kettle, then I'm halfway home free. And it was really like a war to brew this big giant beer. So I think Speedway is always a challenge, and it's always fun to taste the final product. But again, they're like my children. And by the way, I got talented folks brewing these beer now. They hardly even let me in the brew room. I go in to watch, and everyone gets quiet. I'm like, oh, I'm that guy now? Come on. Tell the off-color joke. Tell the whatever. I'm one of the guys still. No, you're not. You're the boss.
Yeah. Well, I love that the hardest beer to make is your favorite.
Well, I think brewers are attracted to what they do because it's an age-old process that we've only put science behind for the last couple hundred years. So in a way, we kind of feel like we're still figuring stuff out, and it's still fresh enough. Even though we're talking about a 5,000-6,000 old beverage, we've only really known what we're doing for a little while. So yeah, still fun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another question that came up from a guest was, any thoughts on working with another Padres Hall of Famer? And this guest called making a Trevor times 51 Hellas Bells, which I thought was great.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. Well, I'll entertain anything. We do brew a beer with the 90s band Sublime, and it's kind of fun to have these folks in your brew house and helping make these beers. Trevor, interesting. I remember, we had a lot of Padres here drinking 394, and Trevor, wonderful guy, love him to death. And he's drinking the beer, and it's almost like that scene out of Sideways. I looked at him, I said, "Are you chewing gum?" That's a no-no. But
what are you doing?
because of the Gwynn connection, we're privy to a lot of Padres, and it's really fun. And Bruce Bochy has been here, and many Padres walking through the museum. And I'm not. I'll if he wants to make a beer, come find me, Trevor. We'll talk.
There we go. I like that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter. It was so nice talking to you and sharing the Tony Gwynn story. I just love that. I love when we're able to connect with, the CEO, the owners of the breweries, because we hear these stories that most people haven't heard before. And they're so special. And I am glad that this is on YouTube for the world to see and to hear that story, because I don't know about you guys, but I was definitely getting teary in that.
Mm-hmm.
Just so cool to hear that. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine. And I will confess that many times when I'm talking about this, I get teary-eyed as well, because just a fantastic man and a wonderful family. And we're here to make him proud. So we feel like he's watching us, and that he'd be happy with the way things are going with his beer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And thrilled to be doing this with MIHO. So thank you so much for thinking of AleSmith, and we're always here for you. So you, anytime you want to do the craziest beer dinner ever, you got to call me. I want to be part of that one.
Well, I think we're all excited, and Paige and I were talking just this morning about, doing more live in-person things. So this is the end of our series, but you never know. We could be doing some in-person stuff soon. So we'll call you up and we'll get in there, either a vegetarian meal with Vicky or, do something fun, barrel-aged stuff. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, Paige. Grand slam. We knocked it out of the park, guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. And I'm really looking forward to digging in here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm hungry.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Enjoy. Go Padres.
Have fun. Go Pods.